So that's what I'm saying. The text is like an object. It's gonna change perspective based on where you're standing. I don't know.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I missed you, baby sweet. It was a day.
It was a day.
Please tell me you're seeing this too.
From Seattle, we're Drinking the Movies. I'm Taylor Baker.
And I'm Michael Clausen. Well, that's a nice beer.
That is. This is our first repeat beer.
Well, we had to come to this point eventually.
It's a sad point. I think I'll have to drink some beer to drown my sorrow.
Well, should we take another sip?
Let's do it.
Just in case.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that helps.
I'm starting to feel better about this.
I feel good.
We have 2 titles releasing in 2019. We're going to do first impressions on. We got Keira Knightley's The Aftermath. And we've got Matthew McConaughey, Zac Efron, and Snoop Dogg's The Beach Bum. Is that the correct cast list?
Definitely like a best ensemble kind of movie, if you ask me.
No doubt. 2019 is going to be strong for McConaughey.
Oh, yeah.
The McConaissance is coming back.
It's coming hard.
The Hawkaissance was here. It came. It conquered. The McConaissance is rolling right back. White Boy Rick got it started. And
look out for the beach bum.
Give me a Lucky Lotto and a cigar, would you?
Sure.
You don't sell acid, dude.
No.
That's too bad, man. I write poetry. And I like that fun, man.
All right, we just watched the trailer for Harmony Korine's The Beach Bum. Taylor, what'd you think?
I love it. 5 out of 5. Top film of the year next year.
You think?
Calling it.
It's got potential,
No,
huh?
I'm not serious, but I really like what I saw.
Me too. It looks decadent, extravagant, ton of fun, great cast. This is just a teaser, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. This is, I don't know if this was even a minute long.
The
it felt
official
like I got,
Red Band teaser.
Felt like I got all I needed to know I'm ready for it.
Yeah, and some crucial details. They do not sell LSD at basically gas stations or convenience stores.
This is news to me.
I didn't know that. Never went in and asked.
Is this a documentary?
It could be. It's sponsored by Vice.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I'm psyched. We've never talked about Spring Breakers before. I loved Spring Breakers. Did you?
I mean, it's like a 3.5 heart. You know, like I don't empirically think it's like a great film.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lovely film.
Yeah.
You know, like there's some distance between greatness and I think kind of what Harmony Korine brings.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not just as valuable as something that we might pretentiously call like a better film.
Yeah.
It's just he's working at a lower level of pleasure.
Yeah. 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 It might be a fun rewatch when this comes out and to compare James Franco. I think his name in that was Alien. Is that right? To McConaughey's Beach Bum.
I am absolutely up for it. I would love to change my rating of Spring Breakers to a 5. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. Especially that end shootout. This is kind of a good lead up for The World Is Yours later as well.
Absolutely. I thought about that as we were watching it. You're totally right.
A little bit of a... I mean, when he's holding that joint above the pool, though. Like, that's just...
Oh, yeah. Similar vibe.
Yeah. All right, let's get to The Aftermath.
Let's do it.
Rachel.
Hello, Lewis.
Oh, look at you. They're still finding bodies. There's chaos out there.
This house is being requisitioned by the British government.
Well, Michael, we made it. Whew, that's a trailer. What do you think?
Very long trailer. I just feel like I've already seen this movie. It's hard not to compare it to Colette, the other Keira Knightley period piece we saw this year, which was fine.
What about Pride and Prejudice?
It's been forever since I saw that movie.
I was just going to start naming every single Keira Knightley movie, and they just so happen to also be historical pieces.
We could do that.
Yeah.
We'll spare them.
I'm too exhausted. I think they are too.
Yeah, it's going to be a little hard for me to go into this one completely open-minded when I'm already thinking to myself, this is going to be a 3. This is going to be a 3.
Mm-hmm. It's not even open-mindedness, is it? Though, like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think what I'm experiencing is Kira fatigue. Like, she's not doing something that's surprising me.
Yeah.
I had to go back to 2013's Laggies to find her be surprising. I watched that, I think, maybe in the end of summer, early fall.
Yeah.
It was a great surprise. Lynn Shelton film.
Yeah.
Very good, but whatever she thinks is happening when she's giving us these historical pieces is missing.
Yeah. I am just dying to see her in a different environment, taking on a completely different kind of person. It just feels really familiar. I think it has potential just to be a little bit more rousing than Colette was.
Definitely.
But, I don't know. I still can't help but be a little skeptical. Maybe not skeptical, but it's just one that's hard to get excited about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If this was Domino 2 and Mickey Rourke had a shotgun and they were back on the subway, I'd be all in.
Yeah.
But this is Keira Knightley wearing period piece clothing. Mm-hmm. And then just not focusing on Keira. This is an interesting idea for a book.
Yeah.
But this was never a story I wanted to watch on film. This type of a story is a very good classic, like Jane Austen type story where
definitely
family that was victims in World War II comes to Germany to do some sort of a government job, it seems, or a military job, and then they take over the house of a German, and so it's kind of like they're occupying Germany now. So there's like an interesting ethical question where it would be fun to live inside the narrative mind of all of these characters and see their interplay. That just doesn't translate for me into film anymore. Yeah. And I think that's what Colette might have suffered from. Yeah.
I mean, I think if the characters are strong enough, it could, get me interested, but it just looks a little bit too neat or clean for a war movie, in a sense.
Cookie cutter.
Yeah, it kind of just lacks the grit, I think.
Well, it's not really a war movie either.
Right, but,
There's
the context is there.
Yeah.
I think for this to really be grounded in something, that I would feel a bit stronger, I would need something with a little bit more grit than this is willing to give us. But, I don't know. We'll see.
Unfortunately, we will see it.
We will. All right. AMC A-list.
Ugh. What have they done? Now let's talk about a much more pleasing and pleasant film.
Let's do it.
From a up-and-coming filmmaker, we have When Jeff Tried to Save the World.
It was 1957 when Edgar D. Winkle first stepped into this building. Little did he know that it was to become the place we know and love, Winky's World.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is Jeff, manager of Winky's World. Did you wipe the counters?
100%. I will 100% do it in the morning.
Insurance isn't going to renew. We are basically a strip mall waiting to happen.
Starring John Heder. It's directed by Kendall Goldberg. She also co-wrote the film, and the cinematography is by Nico Aguilar, who is going to be the cinematographer for Charlie Day's upcoming directorial debut and starring feature El Tonto. Which cool. I'm quite excited for. That's estimated to be a 2019 release, so I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Got it. Awesome.
What did you think?
Oh.
Ooh.
I really like this
Riposte.
movie. I get the sense we're on a similar page. I really like this movie.
Yes. Same wavelength.
You did as well?
I did. It was just a pleasing pleasure to leisure around with John Heder as he lost some of his pills and attempted to save the world.
Yes, he gives it his all. I thought it was funny. I thought it was sweet. The movie itself, I think, has a really big heart.
It does.
Everything it does, I think it does sincerely. And I really like the sense of place that it has. This is set in a bowling alley, and I think if you had never been to a bowling alley, this would tell you everything you needed to know about what a bowling alley sounds and feels like. right?
Yes.
Just some of those montages, him pouring himself the coffee, spraying the shoes, shining the lanes. You just get a sense, you're like, oh yeah, that's what a bowling alley feels like. It's just a weird textural thing when a movie seems to like give you like what a place can kind of smells like. You're like, yeah, I'm in this bowling alley.
Yeah, like we feel like we know that bowling alley now.
Yeah.
And I generally feel like I know his apartment. But I know his apartment even less than I know the bowling alley. And the bowling alley is this huge, sprawling place, and I really have a sense for place. Like, I know where the lockers are. I know where where everything's at.
Yeah,
that's kind of fun.
Absolutely. I liked the retro vibe, right, that we get from the arcade games themselves. Right from the opening frames, she's got, I think it's LCD Sound System who's doing some of that opening music.
Oh, okay.
Paired with that, arcade game aesthetic, which I think kind of gives it kind of a nostalgic feel, but not too indulgent, right? It's not leaning too hard into being a nostalgia
it never becomes
exercise.
an indulgent film, which is... I had recently watched on Netflix when Scott Pilgrim tried this... Now I'm blending the title. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. There we go.
Got it. Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And, by all thoughts, this would just be an exercise in genre when Jeff tried to save the world in doing that same thing.
Yeah.
But it's not at all. It kind of does the exact opposite constantly. But it's never on purpose trying to subvert the genre.
Yeah.
Which was really fascinating and fun to see, like, the same kind of sheeny gloss on top of these normal images. And then instead of, really going crazy and having what you would think happen, because he's trying to save the world. And at a few points, we think that something crazy might begin to happen.
Yeah.
Instead, they kind of double down on the real world reality.
Yeah.
And that was nice, and it was almost more touching that way.
Yeah. And it gets very real in moments, but I think it never becomes, like, overly heavy. I think it kind of retains a light touch throughout, which is really nice. And it's funny. There were moments that I was smiling big and I was laughing out loud. I thought the kid thinking the place is haunted was a great gag.
Oh, yes.
I was laughing.
Also, the paranoia that comes from him smoking the pot is like part of the joke, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Him calling John Heater's character when John Heater's in the middle of hooking up with his new lady friend for the first time, right? Great moment. Yeah, I really liked it from start to finish. Jim O'Hare, great to see him taking on a role like that.
He's putting the pants on. It reminded me of this role. I don't remember the name of the film, but he played like a murderer in the 50s, rolling around in this car with glasses. It was a fascinating film.
You watched that one too?
Yeah.
Oh, me too. Yeah. We never talked about that one.
No, that came out 2015.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah, that was a great film though, and I can feel kind of pieces of his performance coming from that.
Yeah, that one won an award at SIFF.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. I haven't had very many celebrity sightings in my life, but that was one where we saw Jim O'Hare because he won, and so he was there.
That's a big celebrity sighting.
I was psyched. But now I'm gonna say it's Jim O'Hare from When Jeff Tried to Save the World.
Oh, damn it, Jerry.
Yeah.
We also agreed that Steve Berg was amazing.
Definitely.
He was this very facial haired up individual who was hitting on the manager, who stars in a short for Kendall. I don't remember the name of it, but it's Gloria, something about Gloria. I think that gal's name is Andy Milo.
So that was a fictional short?
Yeah, it was like a 10-minute short that has, I think, all these guys in it. Right?
Oh, cool.
So it might be like a stand-up comedy type thing, like All About Nina, but, you know, better paced and better.
Yeah. Another hilarious running bit, him trying to actually hook up with the owner of the bowling alley. Hilarious.
Yes. Yeah. And, like, consistently earnest. Not just him, but this whole film. Like, it's just so earnest from the boots up. And you know, like there are some melodramatic moments that don't completely come through just because of the narrative constraint.
Yeah.
But they pay, they just are paid so serious attention by the actors.
Yeah.
That it becomes real for the movie in a way that another movie like Hearts Beat Loud, it never became real for, because they kept cutting too much, and we never really got grounded with just one character. It was the dad and daughter duo in Hearts Beat Loud, Nick Offerman, and I don't remember the gal's name. But because we're spending so much time with John Heder, everything that feels that would feel clunky in something else feels honest in a heightened way. Yeah.
I very much believed in what this place, the bowling alley, Winkies, meant to him. I don't think it's any surprise. I think it's even in the plot summary that he's dealing like with some anxiety, some stress and depression. And this is a place where he finds some relief from that, right? We know he's a super smart guy. We hear that he, I think, studied computer science. He built one of these arcade games himself.
So did all that trick you? Because it tricked me. Because I watched like the one scene trailer that she had available on her website before we watched it, and I kind of was like, okay, so he's gonna save the whole thing because he's a genius. And he knows how to wire things because he made the game. And the problem is the wiring. So he's going to save it. And then it never came about. And I was like, God damn you, Kendall. You tricked me.
You fully expected this to be a happy ending for Winkies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in like there's a stereotypical way that the story would go based on that scene, right? Like this guy has a set of skills. There's a problem. There's no way he could ever solve it. He has these very particular set of skills. He's gonna solve it, like Liam Neeson's. No, it doesn't do any of that. Instead, it resolves some issues that you don't even really care about until halfway through the movie. By the end, and it's just a really sweet flick.
Sweet, and I thought the romance was really sweet.
It was honest in a way that was surprising. Just because so many movies aren't honest like that. We'll get to, Burning, which will be totally different by the end of this podcast. So it's nice to see reality reflected in a film.
There are movies where it just feels good to be excited about a couple getting together. And I was excited from start to finish to see them and their budding romance, which I thought was just very sincere.
How about just like the sincere, great word. How about those sincere, very sweet texts at the end involving a certain key?
Those were great.
Right? Like those weren't trying to like overdo or signify or implicate anything. It was just like this really honestly normal, sweet thing. It makes me feel like in that world continuing when I had to turn the movie off because it ended, things were going to continue to go nice.
Absolutely. Simple but effective. An understated kind of way to tie that out. I thought it was great. Any other thoughts?
I mean, she doesn't have any other movies coming out soon, which is very disappointing. Because I would like to just kind of stay in these nice worlds.
Totally, I think I wouldn't disagree with anything you've said. I think that sort of nostalgic vibe I thought was really sort of a sly approach because of one of the themes I ultimately got from it, which is about what it means to let something go. Which I think is sort of an interesting theme to attach to something with a very nostalgic feel to it.
That is. I didn't really pick up on the nostalgia vibe as strongly. I was kind of more in this genre vibe of Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. These types of sheeny, glossy, beautiful looking flicks that also have these stylings to them, and instead of leaning really hard into the stylings, she went really hard into the heart, which was just great.
I wouldn't disagree at all. I think it's part of his fascination with the arcade game, right, and his attachment to that. and how that manifests itself in those dream sequences where he's like a Pac-Man or something like that. To me, that just sort of evokes kind of like an 80s kind of feel to it or something like that. That's what I think of when I think of Pac-Man.
Gotcha.
And the Winkies thing itself, it doesn't feel 2018 to me.
No, it definitely doesn't. It feels like, something being lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you feel him nervous about losing that and then thinking about what the future looks like.
What was that great line he had when he was calling everyone? No, we don't have any VR games.
Yeah, great joke.
Great little addressing it within the context of the world and like just instantly moving on. That was a nice little screenplay touch.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think that knowing that he is so smart and he hasn't pursued any of these fancy tech jobs or roles like that his parents might want him to, maybe what he needs to help him kind of let go of this phase, since this place is maybe coming to an end, is somebody by his side. And that's what he ultimately is maybe going to get with this woman that he meets. So he gets to enter the next chapter, hopefully with her.
Did you get the sense, though, that he hadn't continued that job because it did not allow him mental stability? Because I got the sense that he was at the bowling alley for mental stability.
No, absolutely. I think it's one of his coworkers who towards the end calls it a happy place.
Yes.
Right? And I think that is absolutely one of the things that this is to John Heater's character. This is his happy place in a way. This is what allows him to take a breath, to relax. This is where he's comfortable. This is where his family is. But I just think, were this place to shut down and for him to have to navigate that alone would be much more challenging if it were not for this new love interest, who I think is going to be his partner, and his co-pilot in the next chapter.
And the way that things do seem to manifest themselves by the end in his other interpersonal relationships. I don't want to spoil it, but there's some other stuff that's happening that's just... it ends and you just want it to keep going.
Absolutely.
It's definitely, it feels like, it does feel like a film, but it also feels like a pilot where I want the rest. Give me more.
Yeah, or like a TV show that goes backwards that just shows us like what Winkies was like, up until this point. That would be great too.
It would, but
I could just hang out with those patrons, those customers.
Oh yeah, El Diablo.
Yeah, exactly. I could hang out with him more.
Well, it seems like a natural stopping point, so we don't spoil anything. Kendall has 3 films and a docuseries in development right now through the same production company that she made this with, Bad Rack Entertainment, which has the nice little bowling alley rack drop down at the beginning. And When Jeff Tried to Save the World is available on almost all video-on-demand storefronts, whatever you want to call them, digital storefronts. We checked iTunes, we checked Google Play, Xbox, Microsoft, PlayStation, all got it on their stores, and there might be a few others, but all the big ones got it. That's what matters. You can rent it or buy it.
Go buy it.
Definitely, so that Kendall can make more good movies. Damn it.
You'll want to rewatch it. Cheers.
Cheers. Well, you put your gloves on? Let's get to it. Creed 2.
In the ring, you got rules. Outside, you got nothing. Life hits you with all these cheap shots. People like me, we live in the past. You got people that need you now. Hey. You got everything to lose. This guy's got nothing to lose.
I ain't got a choice.
That's the same thing your father said, and he died right here in my hands.
Let's talk about Creed 2. I was very so-so on this movie. Just slightly positive. What about you?
I was very so-so on this movie. Slightly negative.
All right. We're kind of in the same spot.
Yeah. I think you give it a 3, I give it a 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just a baseline. You liked Creed 1, correct?
Quite a bit.
Me too.
Quite a bit. Really strong visual imagery. I don't remember everything perfectly, but I remember the camera timing with the sound design and the punches landing was just very, very impressive technically.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that made me very surprised watching Black Panther. And I didn't like Black Panther. And I thought it was very poor compared to what he had shown us camera-wise in Creed with what he was able to do with the sound design and battle sequences.
Yeah.
I felt like Black Panther took a huge step back. There are some scenes that are okay, and some scenes that would be better with different CG or better CG, some of those king fights. But there's something missing in his continuous work and in this sequel from, I don't remember the director's name, but I think he's from Ohio.
Stephen Capel Jr.
Stephen Capel Jr.? Capel or Cable?
With a P. Capel.
P. Capel Jr. Yeah, he's from Ohio. That's all I know.
I did not know that.
So
Interesting.
Boom.
Yeah, I would agree. It feels like a bit of a step down in craft from Creed. There's nothing quite as thrilling as some of those single takes that we got in Creed 1. But overall, I think I was satisfied with the direction. I think kind of moment to moment I was with it, and it still kind of got me excited, despite not really being all that interested in what actually happens.
I think this is where we might be able to point out where we completely disagree on where this film went wrong.
Got it.
I believe I read that you think that Sylvester Stallone's screenplay is bad. And I would say that what's done visually with what the screenplay is given to the director is bad. I think that the choices the director made are worse than the screenplay.
Interesting. Yeah. Moment to moment, I think I was pretty engaged with the movie, but I thought the movie kind of lost sight of what this fight actually means to Creed, and in turn.
Oh yeah, we never got there.
Yeah,
but I don't quite know that I would blame Stallone for that. I think that there's a huge by the end of the movie, do you ever feel like you know how he's feeling?
Creed?
Yeah.
No, not particularly.
Did you feel like you knew how he was feeling in the first one? Because I did.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't always know what was going on in his head, but you knew that okay, he definitely wants to fight. Now he's extremely troubled for this reason. He's the visual stylings was bringing about what the screenplay was communicating, I think, a lot better in the first one than in this one. And I would point to the first hour of this film as just being a slog and very poorly framed, to be honest. It looks good framing wise, but if you think about what how much emotion should have been communicated in the first hour, it wasn't framed correctly to bring me into the world. It was just nice to look at.
Yeah, but I don't think that the stakes were there on the page to ever get me involved. I mean, I think at the start of this movie, I guess what I was largely getting was this first being about Creed's sort of ballooning ego and insecurity, right? As this, he's the reigning champion. Now he's getting challenged to another fight with Drago. He suspects that Rocky thinks he might not be able to do it. He gets defensive. He says, I'm going to do it anyways.
Okay. I agree with what you're saying, but you said something, I think you said at the beginning of the film? That happens halfway through the movie.
It's pretty much right when Drago actually challenges him, which I would consider the catalyst for the rest of the plot.
I mean, there's maybe it was 40 minutes, that intro. Where they're establishing everything, and we go for 25 minutes, and then he has the fight with the first guy defending his title or winning the title, and then he's immediately challenged, and then we go spend some time in Russia, spend some time with Stallone, and then that happens, and then there's another hour and a half after that fight happens, right?
Yeah. What was your point?
Just structure-wise.
Yeah.
Trying to... Because you said at the very beginning, and to me...
Yeah, first half, first third even. Yeah. I mean, I felt like that's how it's getting its gears into motion, or suggesting this stuff is getting to Creed's head. He's getting insecure about losing the title.
Yeah. Visually, I didn't feel that.
Right.
I definitely took that away, but I didn't feel it.
Yeah. And he sort of suggests he wants to do this to honor his father's name or protect his, family legacy or whatever. Even though I think the filmmaking is suggesting that it's his pride that's really getting in the way.
Definitely.
And then, at some point in the movie, they go to have dinner with his mom, and he's going to tell her that he's actually going to take the fight, and she says, don't pretend this is about your father. So the movie kind of calls him out, for claiming that this is about his dad, and then it kind of just lets him off the hook, right? For what this actually, what good reason he has to take this fight. It just all of a sudden becomes about him wanting to do it just because he's because he wants to be a champion. I think it completely.
I think that there's a resolution to that after the fight, right? Before the next fight, in the trophy room with Stallone. Do you think that that's?
I can't remember that scene.
So he gets his orbital bone shattered, gets the shit kicked out of him in the first fight with Drago, right? And then he's recouping, and then the mother asks Stallone back to L.A. And he comes back to L.A., and then he is waiting in his mother's house in the trophy room to the left of the doorway. And Creed walks in looking for his mom, and instead he finds Stallone in the trophy room of his father.
Oh, right, gotcha.
And then they have a conversation about what he wants to do with his achievements and what they're going to mean to him. And so I do think that it does later get to that. I don't know that it does a perfect job, but I definitely think that he goes through that first fight without ever addressing it, and then he addresses it, and then he wins the fight.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I could certainly look at that scene again to see if it helps me get a better sense of what this ultimately means to him. But right after he finally beats Drago, whichever one, the announcer says, Creed has finally written his own narrative, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this has never been about anything other than a fight staged explicitly because of who these people's dads were. I just don't think it convinced me at all that this was important to him for any really good reason.
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
Screenplay.
I don't think that
like
that's
that
the
fails to
screenplay's
get me
fault,
to
though.
care about. Like that's a written reason for like why I should care about what this means to him.
Perhaps. I think that I think when I'm looking at it, I don't remember those moments in Creed. I don't remember when Creed had to tell me why things matter. I just remember being shown them mattering. And I feel like that's the distinction I might be making, that I'm not being shown what matters to him ever in this movie beyond melodrama. The only thing I'm shown is melodrama. Tessa Thompson's losing her hearing. Tessa Thompson's playing a show. Tessa Thompson wants to move to LA so that she can play for a different crowd before she loses her hearing. The daughter being born is deaf. Like, it's just all this melodrama imagery. There's not imagery showing me Creed's internalizations. And I think in the first Creed there were internalization shots of Michael B. Jordan. And I mean, he's an incredible performer. And I think that there was a communication left on the table here. I won't say that the screenplay's perfect.
Yeah.
It definitely isn't a perfect screenplay. But I do think that it is also the director's job to show us visual communications of the evolution of something happening without dialogue. Like these silent moments of Russell Crowe looking over the sea in Master and Commander aren't, these really well scripted things. Like, he's going to ruminate on this subject. It's just he's silent and looking, and because of the strong visual style, something's communicated to us by Peter Weir. I think that intangible thing being communicated to us, that is even communicated to us in Burning, and these silent moments is missing. There's the silent moments missing of emotion in this film. And I think that I might be so bothered by that I might not be able to map onto all the screenplay's problems.
This is fascinating. We ended up so close, but for
so
completely
far
opposite reasons. Yeah, I mean...
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just fascinating. I thought some of the individual moments you called, I think, were the most affecting ones for me when he did find out that his daughter was deaf. I mean, I just thought to myself during this movie that these moments when they cry, I just felt like these actors know how to cry.
I just wasn't affected by it.
No?
Because I didn't believe that I was on a journey with them. I thought that I was on a journey watching them. I felt closer to Stallone than I ever felt to any of the other characters.
I can see that. I mean, Stallone's a great actor.
There's this one scene where he walks in somewhere and he... Oh, it's at the end when he walks in with the son. Is it Milo Ventimiglia that's playing his son in the film?
Is that right?
I think it might be.
I don't think I know that.
It could be the kid or the guy from This Is Us who might also... It's Peter Petrelli, Heroes. He walks in and he's holding his hat and, you know, hat in hand, talking to his grandson and his son, and it's just this deeply affecting emotional moment. And it's like, where was this the whole movie? You know, where I know that they built that up very, very well, but there's this there's a lack of me being emotionally engaged with this film throughout that I would point to and blame visuals more than screenplay, because I don't think the screenplay should get you emotionally involved. Because if the screenplay could get you emotionally involved, then you would have been a lot more emotionally involved in Collect. You know, like these things that are really rich in text that have all this stuff going on. Like I do think that you need like a really strong visual eye and a use of close-up and a strong use of editing and sound design in order to create these things. And there are such strong moments with the light show. With the very last fight that make me go, who directed the first fight? Because the first fight sucked. It was terrible. And the last fight was awesome. So, like, what's going on? I think that if I was to be a little bit unkind, I would say that he wasn't prepared for this project in the beginning. And as it was going, he caught up with the wagon and then began to pull it by the end. Or, you know, the studio came in and offered more help. Who knows? But I think that it really suffered in the beginning, and I just never got on the wagon.
That's assuming he shoots in chronological order, right? I don't know. I think that's hard to conclude. Yeah, I don't know. I think we just have to agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, I was with it minute to minute, moment to moment, had a good time, and then the second I was thinking about it on the whole, I thought this just is entirely forgettable, and I would watch another light show that this director staged. I'd watch another training montage that he put together.
The training montage was awesome.
Yeah, those were fun. Awesome. Yeah. I'm never gonna like just love a training montage no matter how great it is. I don't know that that's the kind of thing that I just look for in a movie. It's a great training montage, you know? So even that is
they're
like...
few and far between, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
You got Star Wars, you got Rocky. What else?
Yeah. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the movie is a combination of all the things. Yeah. We were so-so.
I think one other point that I might bring up, just so that I can ask you and maybe you can tell me, when you consider like Francis Ford Coppola's films, if he directs a bad movie not from his own screenplay, are you more likely to lay it all at his feet or the screenwriters? Because when I was watching this movie, I was thinking in my head, like, this is one of the highest grossing screenwriters of all time, Sylvester Stallone. He's made a bunch of great movies.
I disagree with
from
that.
From Rambo to Rocky.
2. I mean, not very many.
Well, there's how many Rambos, how many Rockies? And then there's Creed.
A lot, but,
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not, like, fantastic films, but they're great movies. Like, they're just fun movies to to kick back and relax with or have on while you're hosting company or something. And you know, it's kind of a crowd. He makes good crowd pleaser films, and they're high grossing films. You know, it just because you don't love Avengers doesn't mean that Avengers isn't a high grossing film that's a crowd pleaser. Yeah, and I think that you have to also consider that. Yeah. So I might be not being harsh enough on him because I'm also giving him the leeway of like, well, he made all this other great stuff and he just did Creed's screenplay. So what's changed? The actors didn't change. The writer didn't change. The director changed. Yeah.
I mean, I think I would describe Creed the way you just described those other movies, which is as crowd pleasing. It's probably going to make a lot of money. One that I would happily turn on knowing it's not going to offend everybody in a room full of 10 people, and they would all be mildly entertained. Yeah. Which means it's not a great movie no matter whose fault it is.
Definitely.
But
it's this fighting movie is certainly not that good. Like, I'd rather tell someone to watch A Prayer Before Dawn or The Wrestler or the Jake Gyllenhaal one and the Tom Hardy one and Joel Edgerton one.
The Warrior?
Yeah, Warrior.
Yeah.
Warrior's
good
one.
movie.
And then there's another one, though, right? There's another one that came out right at the same time. Or almost
The
the same
Fighter?
time.
Am I just making up words
Well, The
now?
Fighter's Mark Wahlberg, Christian Bale. Also a great movie.
Yeah, these are all blending together now.
All of those are, like, better than this, right? Is kind of the point.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. The only other kind of broad idea that came to mind watching this was that I think this was maybe the only like sports movie I've seen in a long time. We don't get a lot of great sports movies.
I was actually thinking about giving you a Christmas gift film of a sports movie.
Really?
I was.
That would be interesting.
I'm still considering it.
Yeah.
I believe it's called Any Given Sunday. It's an Oliver Stone picture.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's a Cameron Diaz starring picture.
I'm intrigued. You have my attention.
Yeah, I'd give you the director's cut.
I like it.
It's about 3 hours, but it's quite the film.
Yeah. Consider that, because that sounds interesting.
I'm considering it. It's a strong consideration.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how few and far between really good sports movies there are anymore. Boxing, I think, is uniquely cinematic because it's pretty easy to shoot, right? You have a confined space, a relatively small space that a camera can move around, relative to like a football field, right? You have 1-2 people.
Yeah, I mean, as far as locomotion, it's easy, but like, you know, what A Prayer Before Dawn did, camera-wise, and what this did are not in the same league. A Prayer Before Dawn was otherworldly in how close you got to the hits landing and communicating the bodily damage. This was just like really loud punch sound effects and then cool up angles towards lights and down angles and then zoom ins after getting hit on special effects makeup. Yeah. Or like slow-mo drool going, you know, like there's a lot of visual stylings that are happening that might be easier, but I don't know that this did something special with the camera. Did you feel that way?
I thought it was solid, but nothing particularly memorable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just made me wonder, like, is there ever, like, when are we going to get, like, a great auteur-directed soccer movie, right? Like, isn't that something, like, particularly challenging?
Well, Michael, you're a soccer fan.
I am.
How often do you watch a soccer game?
Not very often.
Why is that?
Because
they're boring.
Well, I know. That's why it's hard. That's why these guys get paid the big bucks. That's why they're great directors.
Yeah, they'd have to call it Kung Fu soccer, right? There's like Shaolin soccer or something where like you kick the ball so hard it gets on fire or something.
Yeah. I was just ruminating on what it takes to make a great sports movie, and as I was trying to come up with good answers to that, I thought to myself, "Oh, I can't even think about very many great sports movies." So it was hard.
Oh, really?
They're all I thought of so many boxing movies.
Yeah, boxing, MMA. But then there's, you know, Space Jam.
Yeah.
Basketball.
Never saw that.
That's a great movie.
I liked Hoosiers. Gene Hackman movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Big Lebowski.
Bowling. Yep. Yeah, another one, you know, that's kind of a small space, right? Yeah, I mean,
Wait,
I just think
does
there's...
When Jeff Tried to Save the World count as a sports movie?
I think it does. Holy smokes. Connections. Oh, what was I about to say? Oh, I was thinking about, this is going to sound like a tangent, but I was thinking about Lean on Pete and how that sounded like such a tired genre when I was getting ready to watch that, the boy and his sad animal movie, and how I feel like something about that movie that was really special to me was how it felt fresh. So I think the sports genre is something kind of similar to me, where I think that's partly what was special about Creed 1 is that it did feel fresh, even though there are only so many outcomes to a sports movie. It just makes me like interested to see like what else can be made in the sports genre that would feel really new and exciting.
Definitely.
This isn't it.
In the A Boy and His genre, I also had a consideration that I was going to give you as a gift. I'm pretty sure you've never seen, I think it was 1979 or 1969's A Boy and His Dog in the nuclear wasteland with a telepathic dog and his boy.
I love everything you're saying.
But you don't watch science fiction, so...
This sounds pretty cool.
It's tough. It's a tough recommendation.
Tough call.
All right. So I guess one last conversation about Creed 2 that has very little to do with Creed 2 is I'm kind of picking up that maybe you don't like him, but do you think that Sylvester Stallone is a true movie star the way that we were talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger earlier? Specifically Matt Singer, how Matt Singer kind of considered Schwarzenegger. Because I'm starting to think like he does have the legacy that Chaplin has for America, I think. Not as a director, but as a writer and a actor. He is a very important person who you could talk to basically anyone over 40, and they have a very strong attachment to Sylvester Stallone and what he means to American cinema.
I could see that in terms of like sort of his household name recognition. I could see it.
Not just recognition, but talent.
I don't know that I see that. I mean, for me, it's just too hard to compare the influence. You know, I mean, I think Chaplin's like one of the most influential stars, directors who ever lived. He was one of the most famous people in the world when he was born. I don't know that Stallone's achieved that.
I mean, we're only 100 years into cinema, so like,
true. Still, a relatively young art form. So yeah, I think that's an interesting question, especially if you think about Rocky as establishing a template of some kind.
And I mean, I'm not saying that like I didn't particularly enjoy Rocky. I don't really love those first Rambos. I think that the Rambo that I liked the most was the one that came out when we were in high school. You remember that one? Like Last Blood or something?
Barely.
It was just an insane bloodbath, and I watched it with my buddy, and we just had a good time laughing and watching people die. You know, I'm not saying that like he's making the greatest art, but I do think that what he's provided in terms of Americana, you know, like he's not Jeff Nichols, but I do think that that by ignoring him from the conversation of Americana and a lasting legacy, we're having a huge oversight of one of the top earning screenwriters in American history, who's also acted in almost all of his own films. Yeah.
Even though Arnold's not a writer, to me that does feel like a really interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Just because of the kinds of movies that they've been in, I guess, right? They're not in highbrow art films. Arnold's maybe done something more sci-fi and action oriented. Well, I guess Rambo's an action film. So yeah, I mean, I think that is an interesting comparison. I think we could maybe pitch that to Matt Singer for his next, marathon.
But I mean, like Arnold was desired, right? Because he's Mr. America and stuff. Like Sylvester carved his own path in his own career, and has basically been completely ignored by Hollywood, and still continued to forge on by creating his own screenplays where he can work and generating a lot of wealth for companies.
Yeah,
I just think he's. I would like to continue this conversation at some point down the road.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I saw Rambo, so worth the revisit.
I think what triggered that was him holding his hat and me thinking about Charlie Chaplin and like his too big of pants in his hat.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Like there's something communicated to Americans about like who someone is based on this costume.
Yeah,
and they're kind of doing some sort of a physical acting style that I would call similar. And that's just interesting. You know, I'd love to do Modern Times and Rambo 1.
Yeah, or City Lights with Chaplin's most infamous boxing scene. You know, that's fun because now when I think of boxing scenes, except for Creed 1 where we get something like a really long take, I think about quick cuts to really heighten each of those punches. That Chaplin boxing scene in City Lights, it's all one take. He's hiding behind the ref.
Yep.
I could maybe see Stallone doing that if he was getting nervous.
Yeah.
I think that is a funny comparison.
Yeah. We'll have to revisit it.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the Ballad of Buster Scruggs and do a refill.
Let's do it.
Things have a way of escalating out here in the West.
My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings.
That man is a wonder. Oh, we'll just have to see, won't we? Crazy business.
We're not talking about Greg Scruggs, the ex-linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks. We're talking about The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, a Netflix original Joel and Ethan Coen film.
That's right. The second Coen Brothers movie we've discussed on the podcast.
Yes. The lesser. So I thought it'd be fun just off the top of your head instead of... I was going to text you this morning, but I didn't want you to have a bunch of time to like overthink about it. What's your favorite movie of the Coens? And then what do you think their best movie is?
Well, I have not seen even half of their filmography, so I don't know that I'm very qualified to say which is their best. However, I can easily say my favorite is Inside Llewyn Davis. Whether or not that's better than Fargo, tough to say. Those two would be up there, though.
So they'd each jockey for best or favorite?
Favorite's easy. It's Inside Llewyn Davis. But yeah, for best, I don't know. But it'd be between those two. Unsure. What about you?
My favorite, Hail Caesar. I think the best is A Serious Man.
One I haven't seen.
And that says a lot because Anton Chigurh is not coming up. Jeff Bridges is not coming up. John Goodman is not coming up. There's so many great films that it is fascinating how everyone deviates.
Yeah. Would there be any close seconds? Because you've seen all of their movies, right?
Yeah. I'd say No Country for Old Men is definitely number 2.
I was like, why
best.
am I forgetting one? That would be it.
Yeah, Anton Chigurh is what I mean when I say that.
Yeah. Well, I had to think about who that was. I was like, why do I know that name? Duh. Yeah.
The poet, the writer from Mother, of course. Javier.
Javier. Yes.
The highest paid working television actor, courtesy of Amazon.
That's correct.
What project is that again? The Conquistadors?
I forget what the title is, but yeah, it is. I think he plays a conquistador. Should be interesting.
We will be watching out for the show. Tell you what. All right. There's 6 parts to this. I think that we probably differ in how we would rank them, but I think we both really, really liked Zoe Kazan's little moment. Yeah. That's probably universally like the most agreed upon.
I don't know anyone who hated that chapter.
Yeah, that might be my favorite piece of acting she's ever done as well.
Okay. I liked her quite a bit in Meek's Cutoff, ironically. Very similar.
She was good in that. I think that this allowed her more of a character range, though.
I would agree.
The difference there is like not that she's bad, but that there's less for her to be great at.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Is that your number 1? Should we do a ranking?
No, my number 1 is Tim Blake Nelson.
Oh, okay. We gotta just do the ranking.
Okay.
Right?
Let me see if... I'm pretty sure that I had it down on the old letterbox. Did you letterbox log yours?
I don't think I put it in my review, but I did write it down somewhere.
Ooh, you're right. Feeling. I might have put it in my keep notes for when we talk. I did. I put it in my keep notes for when we talk about it. Boom. I'll go first because I found it. Unless you got yours up, then we'll go line by line.
Go for it.
All right. Buster Scruggs. Number 1, Tim Blake Nelson, Buster Scruggs himself. What'd you get?
My number 1, All Gold Canyon.
Which is Tom Waits. My number 2, Zoe Kazan and the duo of men.
Very nice. This is a close one, but with number 2, I did go with Meal Ticket.
One that I was not nearly as responsive to. Number 3 for me, Brendan Gleeson's.
That's the last one.
Carriage Ride, yes.
Got it. My number 3, The Girl Who Got Rattled.
Zoe Kazan. My number 4, All Gold Canyon or Tom Waits.
There you go. My number 4, the James Franco chapter. Number 2.
My number 5, James Franco.
There you go. My number 5, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Tim Blake Nelson.
My number 6, Liam Neeson's.
Interesting.
I love to say Neeson's. It's the best way to pronounce Neeson.
And my last, The Moral Remains, Brendan Gleeson.
Yes, I completely understand why you're doing that, because I know what you prefer stylistically, and it's just unfortunate. Damn you.
Since our orders differ, want to just kind of go chronologically?
Yeah.
I know there's kind of a lot here. You can almost talk at length
well,
about each
I mean,
one. But...
Tim Blake Nelson, I think what is most interesting about his part is the very end, in which they show this trifecta portrait of the soul ascending to heaven, the person who defeated him continuing on the legacy of bloodshed down the road, and then the people that remain in the town just disposing of the bodies. I think that there's something deep to meditate on. I haven't unlocked it or anything, but I do think that single image is one of the most fascinating amongst the smorgasbord of images that we are given amongst this film.
This was the most Hail Caesar-like.
It was.
Of the 6 chapters. This is kind of in that kind of musical comedy-ish
almost, tone. What's his name? False Teeth?
Hobie Doyle?
Yes.
Esque?
Almost Hobie Doyle-esque.
I would agree.
That's
it's
why
interesting.
I like it.
I know. Considering how much I love Inside Llewyn Davis, which also very much involves some music. I do think there is something just about how they do kind of their upbeat musical moments that is not my kind of thing. I just don't quite like the tone they strike in these moments.
You don't like the golden era of Hollywood. It's all right.
That's false. Completely false. Singing in the Rain, favorite movie. But I think it's effective in sort of setting the thematic foundation for the rest of the anthology. I think most of these involve death. Most of them involve chance in some way, and most of them involve money in some way. I think for me, those were like kind of the loose motifs that were kind of running throughout these. So if nothing else, it at least set me up for what I expected to be in for.
Did you ever unlock what was happening in the chapter beginnings?
You mean like when we're actually looking at the book?
Yeah, I only saw the first 2 again this morning, but I was thinking maybe it's the climax of like when things turn for the character.
Oh, like where those pages sync up with the story itself?
Yeah, because there's the intro page, and it's you see him, you play him, or you saw him, you play him.
Right.
For Tim Blake Nelson. And then the second one, which I didn't watch, but it's Stephen Root yelling "pan shot."
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of the turning point for all of them.
Yeah. The Zoe Kazan one, I think it's the leader of the bandwagon going back to tell his coworker that Zoe Kazan shot herself.
Yes.
I think the tide's already turned for her in that situation, but it's about to turn for Billy Knapp. I think is his name, right?
Yeah. So I just wanted to show you, this is the image I was thinking of.
Him being dragged away.
And then the guy that killed him going down the road, and there's his...
Yep.
And that's how it starts. Boom. Legs up, in between his crotch.
Bye-bye,
the man
Buster
in black
Scruggs
continues to ride.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's something very special with religious iconography always happening in their films, and I don't quite know what that one means, but I think there's something to it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not crazy about number 1, but I think this is a taste thing. I just prefer when they go more serious, when they try to lighten the tone. I don't think that their mood works quite as well for me. But I still think it's an interesting chapter nonetheless. It's just not my
Who
kind of thing.
Who else is making golden era Hollywood pictures today that you enjoy?
Something like La La Land. I mean, to me, there is
That's
not quite
a lot more sad though.
Yeah, but I just don't see the magic or the spontaneity in their renditions of golden era Hollywood that I see in something like La La Land. It just feels too mechanical to me.
If you never hear from Michael again, I have put him in a chair, Clockwork Orange style, and he is just sitting there with his eyes propped open watching Hail Caesar.
Sounds painful.
Sounds like my heaven. Well, let's get to something more interesting. Meal ticket, right? That's your number 2.
Do you want to go chronologically, or?
Oh yeah, we can go chronologically. Sorry, James Franco then.
James Franco. James Franco did not do a lot for me here. That was
Agreed.
Fine, but
I think it was just
bland.
a bad story. I think this is the worst story amongst all the stories.
I would agree. There wasn't a lot there for me to chew on, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
I think
that's
it would have been like a
but...
good in between. You know, like maybe if they would have put this before Zoe Kazan's thing, before The Carriage and Zoe Kazan, so that it goes, and then it would say like intermission, and then this would be the intermission, like death is always coming, and then you go to her finding death in right after There's Something Beautiful, and then the carriage ride to death's door. I think that would have been just more interesting.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I think that is kind of fun to program your own
Buster Scruggs
order of chapters. Yeah, because I think they do kind of work in different ways.
I do think Meal Ticket should have been the opening.
You think?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that kind of... I felt like I was kind of descending towards that gloom in the middle.
Yeah.
But then we end up quite gloomy in the last chapter, too, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be a bookend, in a way, with the moral remains.
I think that kind of that slow lead in with no one talking except for this performance piece.
Yeah.
And then I just would have responded more to it in the beginning. In the middle, I was kind of like, when's this end?
Yeah.
Did not respond well to it. Most of my audience didn't either.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of thought at the start of chapter 2 that we were going to be getting some kind of motif with water and what that symbolizes, because I was remembering that Buster Scruggs was singing about the clear blue water, and then the first thing James Franco looks at is the sign above the well, and it says bad water. And he's not sure whether or not to go in, and that sure seems like an omen telling him maybe not rob this bank.
A little bit Under the Silver Lake hobo iconography, huh?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I don't know the actor's name who plays the bank teller in this
Stephen
chapter.
Root.
I do like him.
Yeah.
I think
he was in Jordan Peele's fantastic film. What is it called?
Get Out.
Get Out. Yeah.
I think of him usually with Dodgeball.
Dodgeball instead of Office Space.
Oh, wait, that wasn't him in Office Space, was it?
Let me check.
Is he Milton? No, he can't be Milton.
Office Space, Stephen.
If it is not, that has to be a very common mix-up.
It has to be, right? Stephen Root as Milton. So
what?
IMDb. Stephen Root talks real life Milton.
That's crazy.
Let's go to Office Space. Check the facts.
That's crazy. How have I never put that together? I think he's got those...
Stephen Root.
That's crazy. He's got those magnifying...
He made me feel crazy, so I was like, what's going on?
I think it's the glasses in Office Space that magnify his eyes that threw me off.
Or was it Jennifer Aniston's flare?
Probably that, too. It's so distracting. Anyways, now that that's settled. He's funny.
Settled. Pan shot.
He was funny, but the chapter on the whole didn't do a lot for me.
I liked the last moment. I think that James Franco was performing extremely well. I just don't think this was a well paced or written enough part. Like this needed more breadth. It needed a feature in order to really pick up pace. It did not exactly work in its limited runtime, and I think that might be my criticism throughout.
Yeah, throughout this chapter,
throughout the whole film, like it just didn't go long enough, except for Meal Ticket, which was too long.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fine.
It's
Still
good
love
enough.
it. Don't hate it. It's a thing.
This is a good movie. It's just individually, each piece kind of falls apart the closer you look. What's number 3?
Meal Ticket.
Your favorite?
I did really enjoy a break from so much dialogue in some of the other chapters. I mean, obviously, this armless, legless man is reciting stuff, Ozymandias, but to me, this was the best example of visual storytelling, except for Tom Waits's. He's kind of talking to himself there. But to me, it was just a simple, straightforward arc. People losing interest in the art that these guys sell, and a guy with nothing else to lose. He's already lost his arms and his legs. Ultimately, loses what he has left, and it is as nihilistic as the others. But
almost more so.
Yeah, I think probably more so. I really liked that performance from the actor. I have no idea who that is. Who
he plays? What is it? Dudley Dursley in Harry Potter.
He plays Dudley?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, Film
Mind
Spotting facts.
blown.
You should have listened to Film Spotting, fool.
That's great. Well, I always try to listen to theirs after we've talked about it.
I always try to listen to theirs before we talk about it, just to remind
interesting.
me of some details.
Got it.
You watch the trailers again. I listen to podcasts.
I will never think of that Ozymandias thing the same, thinking about him as Dudley. Because Dudley's like the mean cousin, right? Harry's mean cousin?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Dudley sucks.
Dudley does suck, but Harry becomes very, very powerful, and Dudley never does. He remains a lowly muggle. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this one. I thought we were sticking with the water thing here since he ends up getting tossed in a river. But we kind of lose that theme, I think, in the last two.
Not
yeah,
necessarily.
I like this one. I was trying to tie it in with 5 and 6. I don't know if there was anything there or not. But, yeah. Not your favorite.
No, I love Liam Neeson. Just didn't enjoy this. I think that's more a response to how well it was made, though. In this case, like, I think someone liking it and someone not liking it are kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, you are able to appreciate the craft in this, and I would agree that the craft is strong, but I was so negatively affected by how terrible the humanity being portrayed is that I hated it for those reasons.
Yeah.
Kind of like I hated the killing of a sacred deer because it deeply affected me in a negative way.
Yeah.
That's kind of how Meal Ticket was. Like, I was deeply affected in a negative way on purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that me hating it is a good thing. I think that means that they did their job. Because I just don't look at things the way that you look at things. You know, you love Burning. I'm lukewarm on it. There's some sort of a visual style that you're mapping onto and finding love for where I'm like, I'm so grossed out that I can't.
Yeah.
Even though I agree it's really well made.
Yeah.
And well paced. It's just,
Yeah.
It's achy.
Yeah. It's an achy ending. That's for sure.
Most likely to be your mom's least favorite part.
I don't think my mom would like any of these, but
like
probably.
to anyone's mom, like this is the worst one.
Probably the last one you'd recommend.
Mom. Yeah.
Yeah. Want to go to number 4?
To the Canyon.
To the Canyon. I loved Tom Waits here.
I did too. I'm a big Tom Waits fan. He's my favorite devil.
Favorite devil?
The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
Oh, I got nothing there.
You've never seen that film?
No.
We may have found his Christmas gift, folks.
Ooh-wee.
This is Heath Ledger's last film. He died 1/3 of the way during shooting. Johnny Depp and Colin Farrell filled in to reprise his role, and Tom Waits plays the devil.
Love it.
It's awesome. A very, very good film. I would put it in the league of Big Fish. If you're a Big Fish fan, this is kind of in the same fantastical storytelling
interesting
picture.
And that was Heath Ledger's last movie, you said?
Yes.
Wow. I'm intrigued.
Anton Yelchin style.
We got good options.
Going out.
I like it.
With a good bang. Thoroughbreds, right?
Oh, yeah. I like it. Yeah, to me, this is one of the most upbeat. I think it is the only one that ends on a happy note, I can say. Tom Waits actually finds his pocket and keeps
this
it.
Might be like the first time to bring up like how much I hate, not to sound like Sean Baker, but digital camera work with these digital special effects on this digital screen. It's just, it really detracted from my experience. Yeah. I would have much rather watched them shoot a normal film stock. The same exact thing. Even if the deer looked just as horrendously unreal. Yeah. I wouldn't mind as much if it was on that good film stock. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. That is not one of the things that does appeal about this chapter to me is the look. I don't think any of them look great, although I do kind of like the look of Meal Ticket since that one's set at night. Maybe I don't realize it quite as much dark,
there.
So you can't notice as much.
But this one's bright, this big lush valley with the animals running throughout it.
Which is like, it's a nice idea. It reminds me of like this this David Spade, Chris Farley movie. I can't remember if it was like who were the two guys that journeyed on the Oregon Trail to discover the Pacific Coast?
Lewis and Clark?
Yeah, Lewis and Clark. It's like a Lewis and Clark story that they did as a comedy film. Chris Farley like climbs this tree and gets some eggs out of the tree. Wow, like
I totally forgot about that movie. It
reminded me of that movie.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Which brought back like a lot of positive nostalgia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if money is one of the themes running through these, like this is one chapter where you see a person just working hard for it, determined to find Mr. Pocket. He finds Mr. Pocket.
Where are you at, Mr. Pocket?
I could listen to him talk about Mr. Pocket all day long.
Me too.
He ultimately finds it. You think he's gonna lose it, and he gets it back. It's very satisfying.
When he climbs the tree and the owl's looking at him when he goes to take the egg and he puts all back but one. That was like there's just a lot of in the moment good screenplay here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And good performance. Such a good performance.
Yeah, I think order-wise, I did appreciate this following Meal Ticket to sort of lighten the mood again, since Meal Ticket was so gloomy.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you were going to say order-wise, I liked watching this following The Old Man and the Gun.
Oh, that too.
A little bit more positive take on Tom Waits.
Yeah. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it.
It is. It's strong, and the way that the valley comes to life before and when he leaves is really nice. That shootout sequence was stirring. And then he throws him in and buries him, and he's got all the gold, and he slaps it on the donkey, and all I can think in the back of my head is the treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Oh, I gotta watch that. Too many references I'm missing out on.
All the Western references.
Yeah.
It's kind of like not watching Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
That would be a problem.
Which I did think about during the James Franco sequence.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
And then he's holed up with his pistols behind the well. Bad water.
Oh, yeah.
Pan shot.
Yeah. Should we go to the next?
Number 5 is Zoe Kazan.
It is.
By far the best theatrical scene out of all of this. Like, it's the most theatrical. It could be extended into a feature-length film very easily, and it's almost very disappointing that it wasn't. It's beautiful. It's got everything that you could want in a snippet.
Yeah, I would agree. It leaves you wanting more. That's for sure.
Did you buy into all of the social backlash about this particular act and its negative portrayal of Native Americans?
Oh, you mean the like film backlash, like film community backlash.
Yes.
Cultural
critic backlash.
It's a good question. I mean, I don't think there's any reason why they maybe couldn't have just told a story from the perspective of a Native American. I mean, I don't see any reason why they couldn't have done that. I don't know that I was particularly offended by the depictions that they did have. It just felt like it was kind of from the white man's perspective, which I kind of feel like I've been there, done that, and that is kind of troubling in its own way. But I don't know that I would dismiss too much of what I did like about, these chapters because of that.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I agree. I think that you can say that we've already had enough of it or whatever, but I do think that there is an interesting thing that we might be throwing out, that the Western canon was not here on this country amongst these tribes before the Western canon arrived. And I think this is kind of a portrayal of what it was like to see the Western canon, pun intended, arriving. Canon. Like we're bringing blood, we're bringing guns, we're bringing horses, we're bringing religion, and we're bringing genocide.
Yeah.
With us. And it's not pretty, but what was here beforehand also wasn't pretty. There was war amongst the tribes as well. And there's no right way to reconcile it. There's just, you need to continue to communicate about it. But I do think that it is just as valuable to see how the arrival of the Western canon was brutal. This might not portray Native Americans beautifully, but it also didn't portray white people beautifully.
Yeah.
So I think that, there's an engaging conversation to be had, and I'm not the expert.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is hard for me not to want to see what they would have to show us about what the arrival of all that meant to the people who suffered from it the most. I mean, I heard some people say, they're replicating, Western novels, dime paperbacks, that kind of thing, which I think is a little silly, because to me, like, they do obviously put their own spin on things, right? Like this sort of magical realism of watching Buster Scruggs float into the sky. Yeah. Like, I think it's totally reasonable to ask them, if you're going to do that, to also just, push boundaries a little bit in terms of perspective. So it's something that I would have loved to have seen. I don't know that it makes me dislike what I did liked,
I would almost rather have an experience committed to that idea, because it as much as we can't grasp how this all fits together, it does seem like this all kind of fits together, and I would rather just have a whole project devoted to what you're talking about with the other perspective thing. To me, I honestly interpreted Anton Sugar kind of as a Native American almost, just almost having like this revenge fantasy against America. Yeah. So, it's interesting, and I'm glad that there's a conversation. I just don't think that you can jump to any assumptions either way. And that's kind of all I can say about it.
Yeah. It does seem like this chapter is the one that triggered that conversation, right?
I think so.
Yeah. I think so. There was Native Americans who actually come to James Franco's hanging, right, in chapter 2. I think that's why he manages to get away.
Yes, there's a shootout. No, he doesn't even get away.
You're right. He is
stays
just there
until he's rescued by a cattle rustler.
Yeah. So they're in a couple chapters. But yeah, it is interesting. Worth talking about.
If you're interested in a deep narrative conversation, I recommend Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh.
There is quite the storytelling about the Native American experience in that video game, which was very, very thorough and very good.
That's interesting. Cool. Should we move on?
Not a sponsor. Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't even dig into Zoe Kazan.
We would love to be sponsored, by the way.
So there were 2 actors and Zoe Kazan, and then the preceding shootout and everything. Did you enjoy the dog motif?
I didn't get much from it. How did you interpret that?
Oh, I just thought it was a nice gag.
Oh, I agree.
Nice
I don't know
gag.
that I spent, I think, too much time thinking about what the dog was maybe a metaphor for. I don't know that I got anything from it, and I was totally fine with that. I think some of these, it's maybe not a good idea to try to read too much into them.
At least not on first viewing.
Yeah.
Let some time go by. We'll rewatch it next year. Let them know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Netflix forever.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Zoe Kazan was terrific. She anchored the whole thing. I thought she was great.
Really well delivered dialogue as well. From
Definitely.
Her. Yeah, let's hop over to the carriage.
Yes, let's do it.
You did not like this, and I predict because of the mouthy screenplay.
Yeah,
Too wordy for you.
I mean, I would probably confess that it's the last one. When you have an anthology, you don't really have the benefit of suspense leading you to the end, That's probably the one that I most owe a revisit, It's the talkiest, so by that point I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah, second talkiest.
Which one?
Tim Blake Nelson is quite the mouthy son of a gun.
That's true. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have any strong feelings for it either way. Interesting performances, and I think it's probably just the one I need to chew on more. What about you?
When you were watching it, did you pick up that it was possibly the Ride to Death store?
No, not really. This is bad criticism on my part. This is me being like, why are we talking so much? Show me more.
I love dialogue pieces.
Yeah.
I think for some reason you love Scenes from a Marriage.
Oh yeah. It's not.
Which
I mean,
is
there's
a heavy dialogue piece.
Totally.
So for me, this is kind of working in that heavy dialogue space. I would liken it most to A Serious Man, where it has a bunch of symbolism and religious iconography happening in the meaning of words and the way that people are being stirred awake or reacting to what is said. And Brendan Gleeson's glee at their misfortunes is very appetizing to my tastes in film and in snappy dialogue. I really like the snappy dialogue delivered back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And some of the monologues we get are, it's just, you can't really talk about this piece without having just watched it and then immediately quoting what's said. But the way that the ride goes and how each person has their slow awakening to what could be at the end of the carriage, and how the carriage driver, no matter what, will not stop, and only these 2 men get to go back. It's just very interesting to me. Yeah, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like a fitting capstone to a handful of stories that all involve death to only underline the inevitability of it, that death will come and it is coming,
and her husband's gonna be back any day now. Any day now he's coming back.
So yeah, not one that I would say I think it's bad or anything like that, just the one that I don't have the strongest opinion of.
I like this movie more than Raising Arizona, but otherwise, it's pretty far down my list.
On the Coens?
Yeah.
It would not be towards the top, that's for sure.
And you've only seen half, so there's a lot further for it to fall.
This is true. Absolutely.
Recommend it. Universal recommendation, especially if you're a Netflix subscriber. If you still have the opportunity to see it in theaters, I think the Landmark might have pulled it all by now, but it's a wholly different experience in theaters than at home, is all I can say. And if you get the chance to do Roma, we'll talk about that soon. Roma is much better in theaters than it will be at home. I promise. I just saw it, and it's very good in theaters.
Yeah, even though I was so on it on the whole, I would still recommend it just because I think with 6 chapters, your odds are good of liking a couple, at least. So,
and I think it'll be interesting to revisit this title later.
Yeah.
I do. And I think that you can almost watch one at a time.
Totally.
Like, you can break this down and just watch it as a series over a
Oh,
week.
I agree. Yeah.
In fact, I might do that. Now that
Not a
I
bad
restarted
idea.
already.
I know. I'd probably just do it in a different order. Like, I'd be like, I think I got the least out of The Mortal Remains. I would start there. I might do it backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, great tip for them.
There you go.
Let's hop to The World Is Yours.
Let's do it. I had to stop and think about what that was.
Scarface in France.
Ils sont baisés. N'importe tes couilles, viens, on va les chercher. Ooh, please give me back my money. The fuck off.
Il y a trop de problèmes, alors on appelle ta mère.
Non. Mais pourquoi t'as fait ça?
Il faut qu'ils aient peur de nous.
Ramon Gavres.
That is correct.
I don't know the name of anyone in this film right now. I used to when I had just read it. But I like this movie a lot.
Me too.
It's a nice movie. It's a strong movie. There's kind of a Scarface vibe going on, but not quite Harmony Korine levels of subversion and stylization. But somewhere in there, you know, you get this man who wishes for nothing more than a 25-foot pool and a house and a wife.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
He's a drug dealer trying to get out the game, right? He just wants to start
Courtesy of those icy popsicles.
He just wants to sell freeze pops in North Africa.
That's all he wants.
I think that's reasonable.
I do too. It's not his fault that he kidnaps a young child.
It's his mother's fault.
It is.
Yeah.
It actually is.
I thought he was a great protagonist.
I did
too. Surrounded by, you know, kind of goofy criminals. Like, he's level-headed. He's responsible. He kind of keeps his mouth shut, even though you can tell he's getting fed up with these people. Like, I was instantly aligned with him. And it's just a fun movie.
What do you think of Vincent Guile?
Vincent Guile. That's his dad, right? Vincent Cassel?
Oh, yeah, Cassel, not Guile.
Yeah.
Sorry. Vincent Castle. From
Hilarious.
Gaspar Noé.
Yes,
earlier this
exactly.
year. Yes.
I thought this was hilarious.
Yes.
I thought that was such a great payoff to his conspiracy theory reading.
Yes,
oh my god.
was.
The biggest smile on my face came when he looked at, you know, Mohammed's Adidas logo just before setting the drugs ablaze.
Yes.
It's so funny. I thought he was great. I liked the protagonist's girlfriend. I don't remember what
She's
her name
really
is.
good.
She's great.
Sean Baker was calling for her to be a Bond girl. I could totally see it.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that.
Totally see that.
Yeah. You mentioned the Safdie brothers in your review, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting comparison. You know, if I were to compare this to Good Time, like, I think Good Time's like a little grittier. This is a little more upbeat, like a little more playful, right?
Yeah.
But they both have some kind of tough situations, I think, and have kind of that propulsive crime feel to it.
Yeah, like this neighborhood crime feel that gets upgraded very rapidly against their will.
Yeah.
And there's that glossy sheen, right? There's this digital styling that it works sometimes. And it worked for me here. Like, the digital photography here looked good throughout.
Yeah.
I definitely responded to it better than Ballad.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, you know, Good Time being a little divisive for how it sort of aligned our perspective with Robert Pattinson's character, who's making some very questionable choices, right? He sleeps with, like, an underage girl. There's some questionable stuff about race going on there.
Hey, he needed the phone.
He did need the phone. You know, there were lots of questionable things there.
He needed to get it.
Yeah. You know, so here I think this is like a little more easily accessible because our protagonist is so much more likable here. But I think that's kind of a fascinating comparison because this does have some troubling scenes, like with racism, in some uncomfortable situations.
But it's the opposite, right? It's the French Africans getting out and beating the white men and saying we'll beat the shit out of any Englishman we see or something. Yeah. And they're having these. What would you think of those like fantasization sequences in which they're imagining killing their leader?
So funny. Loved it. Muhammad and Muhammad.
That's right.
Yeah, one envisions killing their boss, taking the money for themselves. The other envisions killing their boss and the other Muhammad, and taking the money only for himself. Super funny. Yeah, so I think those are perfect examples of where I think it kind of walks that line between it kind of exploiting the decadence that all these people's lifestyles
that Scarface like decadence, right?
Yeah, while also managing to sort of carefully critique it, because our protagonist is kind of the counterpoint to that. Like, he doesn't want this, right? He's trying to get out, so he's kind of our voice of a reason to all this decadence, which is nice. I mean, I think Good Time's a more challenging film in the sense that you're like, why
I think it's more
should
American. I think that's the difference. Like, this feels like a French film, and the Safdie brothers feel very American. Like, it's gritty. It's heavy. Yeah, I would agree. I thought the music was great. It really leans on those musical cues, but I think they work. It's heavy. Maybe it does lean on them. I didn't pick up that it leaned on them. I just picked up that it used them masterfully.
Yeah, I say leans on them. I don't mean like it's using that as a crutch. I just mean like it's not shy about it.
No, it's not.
Right? And I kind of like that. I think it was actually used pretty well. Sometimes that's hard to lean heavy into really kind of pop heavy electro dance music. You feel like the movie is trying really hard to get you excited. I was excited. I was there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And just good music either way.
Yeah, different music that I didn't always know. I like it. It was a nice cultural experience.
Definitely. I watched Romain Gavris's music video for the MIA song Born Free, which I forgot I had seen before.
Yeah.
Way back when that came out, I was like, oh,
I added
this
that back
looks
to my
familiar.
watch list. Meant to watch it, but I didn't have time today. But
yeah, just because I was trying to remember what else he's done. Because I realized that he's been around for a little while, but even though he was a new
he
name
had
to
a
me,
couple other shorts I added.
Yeah,
we'll have to
a handful.
Watch those.
Yeah. So I happened to throw that on, and that was also quite provocative, obviously. So he seems to just revel in the thrill of confrontation, and I think he does it well.
I agree. I concur.
Yeah.
I think some of the funnest moments are the interplay of heist and the mother and son relationship.
Oh yeah.
Whether or not it's just at the mall to get some necklaces, or if it's a big water park prisoner exchange.
Absolutely.
I think that it reminded me of kind of what was happening in Good Time with Jennifer Jason Leigh having the money, being the older girlfriend, and then the younger girlfriend that has the phone, and how the interplay of Robert Pattinson between the two is happening. It was just really strong styling. I really appreciated that.
Yeah,
I would like to watch the rest of his work at some point.
Yeah, it is an interesting relationship because she kind of treats him like dirt. I think that's too strong of a phrase, but I'm thinking about when he walks into the restaurant early on and she demands that he dance for her friends.
Yes. Great point and great moment and great song.
Great song. It's a great moment. And I kind of sympathize with him for his mom putting him through this performance. But he's also kind of having fun with it. Like,
he begins to enjoy it, and then the girl that he loves or comes to love, likes, is looking at him, and that's when he really starts to get into it because she's starting to get into it. It's not the same as the Jennifer Jason Leigh underage girl Robert Pattinson thing.
Yeah,
but it's somewhere in that melee.
Yeah.
Of two different female characters and a boy in the middle stuck trying to appease both, but just wants one.
Yeah. You know he doesn't want to do it, but you also see him start to kind of have fun with it.
Yeah.
Like, he just kind of knows that this is who his mom is. And I felt that same way. A little bit of Stockholm. Yeah. Same way at the mall, right? Where he finds his mom, and his mom is wanting him to cause a scene so she can steal some stuff, and he kind of goes with it. He's like, she's not going to change, and I accept her. It is kind of a fun relationship and not too easy of a relationship.
Not at all. She took all his money.
Correct. Yes, she did. And I think it just has a payoff at the end.
It does.
Very satisfying. Not withholding.
I almost want to rewatch it because I didn't get to like it enough the first time. I want to like it more.
do you think there was something holding you back, or just mood?
I think the layer of it being foreign and me not quite always interpreting what was coming at me with whole understanding. There is a foreign element to the film that is limiting in some ways to an observer of what's real and what's not real. Like when you said when he already started to begin to act in the mall. I did not know he was acting.
I agree. It's a little.
He's like, almost, I can't spend that much time in the kiosk or whatever being held by the security guards. And then he continues to say, and then it starts happening, and I'm like, is this happening against his will, or am I missing a cultural language subtext?
Right. I will completely agree. In the moment, I was a little unsure. It wasn't only until like a scene later when he smiles getting into the car that I'm like, oh, okay, I got it.
And I still don't know if I get it then, or if he's just that happy and forgiving of his mother and the fact that girl's in the car.
I agree. Yeah.
Kind of like when he's dancing and he's not really happy to do it, but then the girl shows up and then he's happy to do it because she's there. Yeah. There is some sort of a cultural, not misunderstanding, but lack of intuition happening.
For sure. You were just 1 degree removed, right?
Yes.
It's not quite as immediate. Totally agree.
I did like the subtext of the North African immigrants, drug game, British people coming in and being unwilling to deal with them because of the one layer removal from someone who could possibly be involved in terrorist activities, and how this guy's just in the middle trying to get his house with his 25-foot pool so that he can take the girl that he likes and go live a life selling freeze pops to North Africa.
Yeah. Yeah. I was with him pretty much the whole way. The only scene that I maybe had a little bit of trouble with, this is pretty specific, so I don't know that it made much of a difference, but that I had been thinking about was when they first go to Spain and his girlfriend, it's not really his girlfriend, but I'll just call her that, says she's no longer with the boyfriend that we had been hearing about, and she says, I'm broke and I'm alone, and she starts crying. She's on the bed, and he immediately takes the opportunity to kiss her, right? And then she says, for $500, right? Yeah. I'll sleep with you, or something like that.
And then afterwards, she says, why did you pay me?
Oh, does she?
Uh-huh.
In that next scene?
Yes.
Yeah, I was... Maybe there were just some details right there because of language stuff that I was like, is this movie kind of letting him off the hook? That seems like questionable judgment there to the kind of exploiter in that state. I couldn't tell. I just was maybe unsure what to make of that scene, and if it.
Yes, I think there's a lot of depth to it.
Yeah,
and I think that maybe if we had just watched the scene, we would be qualified to talk about it better. But
definitely,
there's. I don't want to make excuses for him, but I do think that perhaps a train of thought that he's in is, if I pay her, then she will at least be with me for now, and then I can try to convince her to stay. I think there might be some purity of intention there that might not be communicated by the way that it comes across when we talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that he's negatively paying her for sex in the way that someone just pays for sex. I think that he's paying to try to keep her, and he's thinking of the exchange more as what it could mean, not what it means as a transaction. Yeah,
I would agree. I don't know that I was like any more skeptical of him in that moment, but it was clearly like one of the more complicated moments, right? When he's otherwise pretty easy to sympathize with.
I mean, right after that.
So yeah, I think that's a very nice
she steals
articulation.
The money, right?
Yeah.
So the next thing is, why did you pay me? Then he goes in the bathroom, and she takes, or I think she's asking, why did you pay me? And then she takes the money while he's in the bathroom and runs off, and then there's that whole confrontation, and then they have more of a confrontation, and I think she asks him again, why did you give me the money?
Yeah. I mean, I
which
think
is
it's
maybe an interesting thing for France. Like, maybe there's something there that we are those 2 layers removed from.
Yeah,
of
I mean,
sex work.
Even though I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, I kind of liked it. I did think that was a nice kind of complication, since he was otherwise very sympathetic. And there was, scenes like when they go to meet that acquaintance of Vincent Cassel, who has all the immigrant employees. Employees/servants. Exactly, yeah. That had another kind of good time feel to me.
It did.
Right? Where it's not, I don't know, it's just kind of matter of fact in how it's presenting it.
The French Africans with the bleached hair.
Definitely.
Very good time.
Yeah. These aren't scenes that are really clearly coming down. They're really not judging anything. They're just kind of presenting it.
Yeah.
And if
it reminds me of Harmony Korine.
Yeah.
I don't think that he was making judgments on Spring Breakers. He was just depicting.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. To me, that's what creates conversation. That's what stimulates
this is
thought.
Like Harmony Korine by Safdie Brothers.
Yeah. That's with a French twist.
Yeah.
I just think those are more interesting because they're not straightforward.
Exactly.
All the while, it's fun. It's a fun movie.
It is.
It's really not
good.
weighed down by seriousness in these things.
And
it just piques your thought.
Just like Buster Scruggs, anyone in America can watch it.
There
on
you go.
Netflix.
Readily available.
Bioni?
Want to do it?
Let's burn.
희열을 느끼는 거죠. 여기서 베이스가 느껴져요. 뼛속까지 울리는 베이스.
Beyond, baby, beyond.
We are talking about Lee Chang-dong's Burning.
You're a bit of a Chang-dong master.
Maybe. I don't know that I would go that far.
You're more than me. You're more of a Chang-dong master than me.
I did watch a couple Chang-dongs recently. I watched Secret Sunshine and Poetry recently.
You enjoyed both of them quite a bit.
I really did.
But you did not enjoy them nearly as much as Bioni.
I think this is a big step up. I do. How long ago was it that you watched it? It's been a little while, right? A couple months? Yeah. But revisited it today, partially.
I opened the film and I fast-forwarded my way completely through the film in less than a minute.
Ah, got it. There you go.
So
just
I've got
to refresh your memory.
The key points.
Yeah. For me, this is one of those movies that I just did not want to end. This is a long movie. All his movies are really long. They're all over 2 hours. This one's like 2.5. I did not want to leave this filmmaking. I haven't been this mesmerized by a film in a long time. There are other movies this year that I similarly did not want to end. Suspiria. Mm-hmm. Hereditary is also one. However, I was also so...
When it gets to the end,
terrified that I wanted it to end. You are kind of ready to leave that because it is that good. But I did find this ambiguous in the perfect way that it hasn't left me since I watched it. And I was just beguiled by the feel of it from start to finish. You less so.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to look at. I think that some of the textual elements of it are not quite as good as their comparisons would have you think. I think most importantly, you have to keep in mind the novel, The Great Gatsby, while watching this film. And I think there might be interesting comparisons throughout of Daisy Buchanan, if I remember her last name correctly, and who is the gal in the film? What's her name?
I already forgot.
Okay,
but I'm with you.
But you know what I mean, and how she, our main character becomes infatuated with her, and then she goes on the trip, if I remember correctly, and then she comes back with Stephen Ewan. And then she lives with Stephen Ewan in this she seems to live with Stephen Ewan in this very rich house. And there's some very clear Great Gatsby metaphors. The fact that he's trying to be a writer, and how everything's going. And then if I remember correctly, at the end when he's conducting his investigation, he's constantly typing, and he's like sitting in her house looking at like the power lines or something, which are supposed to be kind of a metaphoric value of looking across the dock at the light where Daisy is across the lake.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of interesting imagery. It's just I didn't necessarily find it to be filled with value. I wouldn't say it's hollow, but it's not filled with value. And that didn't pay off well for me. There are moments that are very fascinating, though. Stephen Ewan leading him up this dirty road in front of this giant reservoir, and him sneaking up and witnessing this. There's interesting moments. It's just the dinner party. There's some good atmosphere. But at the end, I felt like I was holding on to water. Not like I was holding on to something solid.
Yeah. I thought it was so dense with texture. I think this thing feels so rich, and I think the questions it leaves unanswered are what will just keep it percolating in my head. I already want to revisit it so bad, just to get back into the feel of it. I think those ideas are totally right. I think I think that source material is certainly of interest. The Great Gatsby, for sure. I think it's formed sort of an interesting triptych with those couple other movies. One's about a piano teacher, and one's about a poet, and this guy's a writer.
Oh, hold on. Don't tell me. The other movies Lee Chang-dong made informed this movie, and you're willing to let it do that because it's not a Lars von Trier film. Am I right? Am I right?
I'm just talking about what I think he does.
I was trying to catch you.
I think this is way better than those movies. I think his visual storytelling here is next level relative to those. I think those are really interesting character studies. But in all three, what he seems to be doing is just kind of attaching like sort of a genre structure to something more, emotional or character driven, right? Like this kind of turns into like a serial killer kind of movie, right? Assuming you believe that's what Stephen Yeun is, which I think is pretty clear. And in those other two, there are very clear plot devices that just attach really nicely to what these characters have to figure out emotionally. He reminds me a little bit of Jeff Nichols in that regard. That's what I think something like Midnight Special actually does, where it's clearly kind of got the bones of a genre movie, but that's just the tracks on which he's laying some really rich emotion and characters.
Interesting characterization.
Yeah.
I'd be fascinated to watch his other films. I think I'd probably respond better to the other ones.
Yeah.
I guess just some questions for you that because I'm still kind of lilting. I'm still confused by this movie in a few ways. What do you think exactly was the purpose of the alliteration or the duality of telling the father's story in the farm?
The father's going to jail because he assaulted like a government official or something like that, right? I don't know what to do with it yet, to be honest.
So you're not you didn't grasp something that I'm totally at the wind with.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, like this is not one of those movies that like I can claim to be a masterpiece because I have it all figured out. Like that is just in no way the case. In the same way that, like, I don't know, to me there are movies that I still don't think I figured out that I love nonetheless because I love how they feel. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those movies. I mean, I think I very much feel the desire he feels, the confusion he feels at what's actually going on between this girl and Steven Yeun. How whatever sort of anger was in his father seems to also be in him, and how that maybe is class related. I don't know that I can articulate it in a super concise way. I just kind of feel how I think that's maybe what he shares with his father is something class related. It's not, coincidental that I think his father got in a fight with some other farmer, right? And it's not coincidental that Steven Yeun is very wealthy, right? That's why we have this kind of Great Gatsby metaphor working as well.
And the night party where everything kind of decays and
Right, exactly.
Or matures rather.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just think there are some just fascinating visual metaphors that I still haven't worked out. I just know that it just felt so rich. I think about the girls doing her pantomime early on in the film when she's getting a drink with the main character for the first time, and she's talking about pretending a peach is in her hand. And
yes.
Remember that scene, and he kind of carries that through to the issue with the cat.
That's interesting manufacturing meaning out of action.
Yeah, I think that's just this fascinating visual rhyme that kind of continues out as the cat may or may not be real.
But did you also kind of map that onto like her relationship with Steven Yeun might not be real? I remember
totally.
I did that, and I by the end of the movie I still didn't really understand like what she thought her relationship with the main character was, or what she thought she was accomplishing by doing what she did. It was it was quite a confusing film.
Yeah, I mean, she never explicitly states like, "Oh, this is my new boyfriend, Steven Yeun."
Yes.
It is entirely ambiguous what exactly they mean to each other. To me, it is entirely clear that the main character wants her.
Yes.
Like he explicitly says that to Steven Yeun.
Things keep happening to him is kind of how the film, at least how I interpreted the film, was things kept happening to him that made me go, no.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, maybe you deserve it. I don't know if you're more insane than Steven Yeun.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just an interesting combination of something very straightforward that this girl that a guy likes may have gotten involved with somebody with a serial killer, and thus there is danger with some very ambiguous kind of emotional, spiritual quality to it that I think is much harder to kind of articulate, but that I am fully willing to just continue to think about and mull over because the experience of it was so satisfying for me.
I do think it's perhaps one of the most accessible genre films from Korea. It is a Korean film, correct? That is, it's not like Snowpiercer or something where it's made in English.
Also, great movie.
As a foreign film, I think Okja was made in English as well. So, like, just as a straight up foreign film, this might be one of the most accessible since The Handmaiden.
Oh yeah,
to just watch, because I get the sense that even if you're South Korean, the film is very much left open to interpretation and open for revisiting.
Yeah, I mean,
was poetry the same way?
No, I don't think poetry or Secret Sunshine are anywhere near as ambiguous. I mean, I'd be curious to see what you think. I mean, they are long. I think that's probably what would deter anybody from watching them.
Definitely.
But I think they are much more clear in how they are in their resolutions, for sure. I mean, here we know, you can certainly glean that Steven Yeun's the bad guy here. Not the bad guy, but like in the genre formula, he's the killer,
he's the
right?
other.
We have a detective of
He's
sorts.
the other.
Yeah.
And we have an agent, and we have the other. And then we have a intermediary who is the female, Daisy Buchanan.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so much interplay with the Western narrative canon, and like there's more books in play than The Great Gatsby, and I don't know what they are. I would be interested to revisit the film. I just not for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it has my favorite scene of the year, which is when she is dancing to Miles Davis in the backyard.
At the farm?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the backyard of the farm. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there was something I mean, it's interesting to even think about how this might be offensive to talk about to begin with. But I do think there's something interesting about how she manufactured or augmented herself. Because that is open discussion, I think, at the very beginning. Because she says, do you remember when you called me ugly? I think is one of the first conversations they have.
Yeah.
And then we go on to, and I think she tells us that she had facial surgeries, or perhaps her family does. But then we also see the scars of the other body modifications that she's had. And so there's something interesting happening there too with, I think, Korea's criticization of itself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there is something intangible, like when LA criticizes itself for augmentation. I think that maybe South Korea might be having a similar, or this film might be doing the same thing that maybe a LA criticization would do, or Nip Tuck would do.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had kind of gone back and forth about what to do with that. That's like one of the first things she says is like, yeah, I had plastic surgery.
Yeah.
And then she later goes on to talk about how she fell in a well when she was a kid, and
yeah, she's manufacturing these stories.
I don't know that I think, to me, that was ambiguous whether or not they were manufactured, right? And
well, we find out, don't we? There was a well, but she didn't really fall in it. When he goes to the restaurant that her parents owned.
But I mean, I think it's unclear to me.
I like that you think that.
Yeah, I mean, he asked multiple people. One guy said, "Yeah, there was a well." I think him wrestling with his memory of her and how to reconcile that with how badly he wants her now. Like, what does that mean to say that you love somebody who has supposedly these memories of you that you don't even remember? To me, that's I was just fascinated by that.
I also think that it's interesting that Steven Yeun, I mean, all interpretations aside, kills her. Right. And I would agree that our main character loves her and pursues her, just through this augmentation lens. That the rich and powerful man kills the augmented thing. Yeah. After he derives his pleasure from it. And then the lower class citizen continues to value her and pursue her and eventually acts in a brutal fashion because of what she meant to him and how little she meant to the upper class. Like there's almost a deity conversation happening simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is maybe a point to be made every time you see Steven Yeun at these dinner parties yawning.
Yes.
And it's him.
Steven Yeun.
Oh, I like that. It does seem to suggest he is maybe bored with his own opulence. And that the suggestion therefore being he gets some sort of thrill out of this. I mean, I think that's clear enough in a movie that is unclear in a lot of ways. Unclear. Yeah. But I think some of the best movies are the ones that I don't have like all the answers to. That like that's what makes me want to revisit a movie.
Definitely. something that I often think about when I think about this movie, and I do think about this movie more often than maybe my rating shows. I think about it fairly often, is how he runs around and checks the greenhouses for being burnt.
Yeah.
And the possible interplay of looking across the lake for the light in The Great Gatsby. I think there is something to that the light never comes on. And then he goes and turns on the light, if you will, with Stephen Yeun.
Turns it on real good.
Hey,
real
stop
tough.
attacking my shoe, cat. Damn it.
Cat noise.
Cat noise.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. What'd you give it?
3.
Too low.
I didn't disparage it like you did to Hail Caesar. I gave it a positive review. You don't tell me
That's
what's
fair.
low. I tell
That's
you
fair.
what's low.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to watch his other movies. I don't know that that really enriched my experience here. I mean, I think it's always interesting, right, to just see what an author's mark is.
Did it inform him as a film styler, though?
Yeah, absolutely. But I have to believe that what I got out of this movie could also be got by somebody who hasn't seen any of his other movies.
I do think that there's something to your interpretation of giving it a perfect score, where you need to love visual styling and not mind sitting there not knowing anything for 45 minutes in this really, really slow burn. You have to not mind that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of more than just an attention span thing. It's what you value. I think you do have to value the strong images that he is communicating. I just didn't always find the meaning there. And I think I think this is maybe something that, as I continue to talk about it and as years go by and I can revisit it, it will creep up my ratings, but it will never be a top 10 for me in this year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is visually strong. To me, that's what makes it so cinematic. Is that I feel like this is doing something specifically
and you did
that
get to
movies
see it in the cinema, whereas I watched it at home.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's something that this medium specifically can do. It's in reference to maybe some literary sources, but I feel like this is, particularly a visual experience for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about Bjorn? Or should we let it burn, baby, burn?
Just let it burn. Let it simmer.
Next week, we are going to be discussing a double feature, and we haven't decided which episode will come out first yet, because we've got some Christmas separations that'll be happening.
We do.
When we upload these. But we will be watching and recording and then releasing in an unrestricted structure Alps from Yorgos Lanthimos, Dogtooth from Yorgos Lanthimos, and The Favorite from Yorgos Lanthimos.
A Yorgathon.
Yorgathon. I like it. And then we will also be watching and discussing At Eternity's Gate with Willem Dafoe. You will be watching Roma from Alfonso Cuarón. And we will be watching Beyond the Valley of the Dolls from writer Roger Ebert.
It is going to be hard to come up with a title for that episode, I think.
Well, that will be episode 21, so we'll be back, or possibly episode 21, so we might be to the film spotting formula that you recommended for titles.
I like it. We got good stuff coming up.
Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
We have to go.
I'm coming with you.
That was brilliant.